Welcome to the Elle Bee Show. I'm your host, Elle Bee. So, most of the things that you're about to hear are my opinion. But guess what? We sprinkled in some facts because we're what? Educated bees over here in this hive. Don't forget to check out the website for our resources so you can do some additional research on your own. Now, prepare to be stung, but the solve is not included. Welcome back. So thanks for coming back to the conversation that we're having as it pertains to Blackness in media, stereotypes, colorism, all of those good things. So our last episode, we talked about the women, so it's only right that we now talk about the men. So when you think about Black men in the media, gotta, of course, take it back to Bill Robinson, who, if you don't know who Bill Robinson is, he was basically Mr. Bojangles. He was a tap dancing man with Shirley Temple. He was an old Black man that used to tap dance with a young white girl. That's the simplest version of that. He was seen as non-threatening. So, of course, that was okay. Stepin Fetchit, who was lazy and slow, simple, or so he portrayed. He was actually a very smart businessman that had, servants, cars, huge, beautiful homes, and all of those other good things. But the real problem of where we start with Black men in media has to do with the birth of a nation, which is the first full-length feature, not the first feature, the first full-length feature, where there was a white man in black face that attacked a white woman. That is where it all began for Black men in America. Birth of a Nation came out in a time where Jim Crow was prevalent, lynchings were rampant, and, Black people were always on the defense. Coming out of the Civil War, where white people still feel like they should own Black people, especially in the Deep South. So you get Birth of a Nation, which perpetuated the stereotype that Black men were criminals, dangerous, would rape your women and or kill them. There is a scene in this movie where they threw a dummy that was a white woman off the cliff because she was running away from a Black man. But the thing about this movie is that they made this white man in blackface look so horrible. They put hair on his face to make him look ape-like because they thought that we were apes. So therein lies the problem. Because from there, you go on to Black men can be one of a few things. They can be a gangster, a drug dealer, be in prison, a deadbeat daddy, those types of things, which Robert Townsend, who was definitely ahead of his time when Hollywood Shuffle came out, addresses all of these things in Hollywood Shuffle because he, at the time, was a struggling actor. Now, there are several interviews that you can go out and find with Robert Townsend where he talks about Hollywood Shuffle and how he made that movie. I'm not going to go into the details, but it's a very interesting story. Then we move into the Black athlete. Now, when it comes to athletics and Black men, that is one of the ways that is pushed upon Black boys that grow into Black men, that is the only way that they can ever amount to anything. Now, I have studied this, and I have had several teachers over my tenure along the way that have given these examples of this is how we are perceived in the world. For Black men in athletics, it's like, yes, sports are something fun to do. It helps to keep you healthy, physically fit, all those great things. But is football, which is the biggest one, I would say, at least in America, is, risking your life and having potential brain damage the actual best thing for you to get your family out of poverty, to get your family out of the ghetto? I don't think so. CTE is real. There are millions of avenues where people can become successful. And you don't have to be an athlete or a doctor or an attorney to be able to do those things. You can be an accountant. You can be a teacher or a professor. You can work in tech. You can work in entertainment. You can be a social worker. You can do lots of different things. You can be a scientist. You can be an engineer, a mathematician. You can do whatever you want to do. But we don't have to live with the narrative that Black men are only good for being an athlete, going to jail, or being some type of gangster. That ain't the life. We didn't bring crack into America. Hello, Ronald Reagan. How you doing? Yeah, we didn't bring those drugs here. We didn't have planes like that. We didn't bring those drugs into America. Now, I know some of you may be out there thinking like, well, what about Frank Lucas? Okay, that's a one-off scenario. He was a drug dealer, very highly publicized, an American gangster. But that was different, slightly. It was heroin, which is still terrible. But when they brought crack in, please, it was just like all the Black men is going to jail. Some of the women too. So when you look at these stereotypes that are in the film industry, movies and stuff like that, and you look at these shows where there is no Black father, there's abandonment, there is this culture of, you only can get out of doing certain things to have a better life. One of the things is being an athlete. There are some great films that are very inspirational, that are based on true stories, like Remember the Titans, love that movie, which is based on a true story of, segregated Virginia, because it's the South, so there's that. But it was a Black coach that changed the tide, that changed the narrative. But there's also another movie where it was reversed, where there was a white coach. Glory Road was about NCAA championship team. It was a really good movie as well. But then it comes into the play of the white savior, which I wouldn't necessarily call Don Haskins a white savior per se, but he was doing what he thought was right to help his team. So there's two sides of the same coin, if you want to look at it that way. But the question is, what are we going to do to change it? How do we fix this problem? It's one thing to recognize and acknowledge where the problem is, and there are several. It's another thing to say, well, that's their problem, that's not my problem, because I'm good over here. I got my house, I got my family, my money is good, my credit is great, I got my car. That's good. That's good. But what are you doing to help the next person? Because really, in America, like Black people, we're the only ones that kind of don't reach out to help the rest of us coming behind us. We have that I got my mentality, so figure out how to get yours. You don't see that in Jewish culture. You don't see that in Hispanic culture. You don't see that in Asian culture, Indian culture, none of that stuff. But there are several things that tie into why that is the way that it is. Because it was the law that you could not pass down your house to your family members. Only for Black people though, not for anybody else. It was just us. It was the law that we had to live in certain areas. It was the law. We're gonna, dive deeper into that later. But it's all about how we change things from now moving forward. Because it's easy for us to be shot dead, bang, bang, with no repercussions, no remorse. That's the easy part. But how do we solve it? So let's just talk about the great Denzel Washington for un momento. Denzel Washington is a national treasure. Now, he has won 2 Academy Awards. One for Best Supporting Actor for Glory, which he played a runaway slave that joined the Union Army because he wanted his freedom. Okay. The second one, he won for Training Day for Best Actor, which he played a terrible fucking cop that was a drug dealer that had babies with women all over the place. He was crooked as hell. I hate that movie. I've seen it one time and that was enough. But yet and still, he has been nominated several times for other roles that he should have won for, like Malcolm X, which we just talked about. He was, I believe, nominated for The Great Debaters, which is based on a true story about a debate team, Wiley College. Oh, look at that, education. Can't be educated. He's done amazing work. Remember the Titan, a Disney movie. Equalizer 1, 2, and 3, where he plays a former CIA operative, where he kicking ass, taking names, and saving people. Okay, Mo Better Blues, Spike Lee classic. But you give him an award for Training Day and Glory for playing a slave and a crooked cop. Make it make sense. So that's the question I pose to you all. How do we get to a resolution for that? Now, I know when you think about stereotypes and how that plays into the media and how it is for Black men and what that does for Black actors and how they portray those things, one of the interesting thing, I saw this recently. It was an advertisement for some game show. And it was like, figure out what it is based on the picture. It was 4 white cartoon characters on the inside of a hood. It was supposed to be Boys in the Hood. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but Boys in the Hood was about Black people in LA that was living a gangster life, that was trying to break out. We all saw Ricky get shot. We cried. Doughboy, he died. A couple weeks later, after his brother died. But this game was like 4 white people under the 4 white boys under a hood. Boys in the Hood, really? So you take our trauma, you take our tragedies, because Boys in the Hood was based on real life shit, because that was what was going on at the time, and you turn it into something that's supposed to be comical? Fuck out of here. I'm not here for that shit. So, you have these stories that are being told by brilliant Black storytellers like John Singleton, may he rest. Forrest Whitaker is a great storyteller. The Hoodlum Brothers, all of that. But you never see these type of films. Well, Boys in the Hood was nominated for several Oscars, but it didn't win. Should have though, because it was really good. But you have people like Spike Lee, who makes these movies that make you think about shit. Malcolm X, one of the best autobiographical movies that have ever been made about a person. Almost didn't get made because he didn't have funding. But because he called people and say, I need your help, movie got done. Denzel Washington, people thought, oh, this is Malcolm X. He embodied Malcolm X. But Malcolm X was a militant, radical person that America hated. You know why America hated Malcolm X? Because J. Edgar Hoover told you to. J. Edgar Hoover was the head of the FBI for decades. He told America who to hate. He told America who was bad. And because Malcolm X wanted more for his people, for black people, J. Edgar Hoover was just like, he gotta go. Turns out he was assassinated by somebody who was affiliated with the Nation of Islam, unfortunately. But that doesn't mean that the FBI didn't have anything to do with it. Just saying. It's like black men can only be certain things. When there are plenty of highly educated, well-to-do black men that are out here in the world doing their thing, taking care of their community. I see it all the time, especially on social media, where there's these different programs in different cities, where little boys that don't have a father in the house, there's like, in this program, they teach you how to tie a tie. First day of school, you got all these, black dads clapping, saying, good job, you can make it, you can do it, have a good school year, all that other kind of stuff. But of course, most of our black men are in prison because, we're stereotyped to believe that all black men are either drug dealers, gangsters, or athletes. Even some of the athletes do drugs. But you don't see the white athletes going to jail like that for doing drugs. I mean, there was this whole controversy in baseball with this doping thing. You didn't see none of them players go to prison for taking steroids, or none of their records being taken away from them because they was found guilty, testing positive. But yeah, and still y'all want to test Serena Williams. She the most tested athlete, was at the time, because she's retired. But she was the most tested athlete for drugs while she was playing tennis. Why? Because she was better than everybody else? That's their fault. Step your game up and practice more, basically, is what she was saying, because she was kicking ass and taking names and not thinking twice, okay? This is about the men now. This is about the men. So, we as a people need to get away from these stereotypes. Black men, I am talking to you. Come closer. Come in. I'm talking to you right now. You are more. You are more than enough. You can do whatever you want to do. You do not have to be an athlete to be successful. You do not have to be a rapper to be a success. You do not have to be a drug dealer to be prosperous. Period. You don't necessarily have to go to college and get a degree. You can go to trade school. You can create something. You can do anything you want to do. But know that you are more than what society thinks you can do. Remember that. So we're going to move into our food for thought for today. The food for thought Black man, this is specifically for you, okay? So pay attention. Don't play into the stereotypes that are placed upon you. Simply meaning, be more. Show that you're more. Because you are more. You're a king. Hold your head up. You're worth it. You can do whatever you want to do. And don't let anybody ever tell you that you can't. Come back next week because we got more shit to talk about. Thanks for tuning in to the Elle Bee Show. Make sure you share, subscribe, and sound off. I hope you got stung. Who knew it could feel so good?